It was a crisp autumn morning when my world turned upside down. Sitting in my favorite armchair, sipping tea, I overheard my children discussing something in hushed tones outside the door. Before I could process what was happening, they walked in with forced smiles and announced that they had sold the house I'd called home for 4 decades. The very house where I raised my family, celebrated birthdays, mourned losses, and built a lifetime of memories. They explained it was for my own good, citing safety concerns after my recent fall down the stairs. Without so much as consulting me, they'd arranged for me to move into an upscale retirement home, claiming it would be safer and more convenient. My heart sank like a stone tossed into deep water. The walls of the house seemed to close in around me, each creak of the floorboards whispering stories from the past that now felt ripped away. I felt betrayed not just by their decision, but by their disregard for everything this home represented: independence, love, resilience. How could they strip me of my sanctuary without even asking how I felt? For days, anger simmered beneath the surface, threatening to boil over every time I looked at the familiar cracks on the ceiling or ran my fingers along the worn kitchen counter. But then, amidst the storm of emotions, wisdom born of age whispered back, sometimes strength isn't about fighting every battle. It's about choosing which battles matter most. It was supposed to be a routine Tuesday morning, but fate had other plans. After the upheaval of losing my cherished home, the sanctuary of 4 decades, to my children's well-intentioned but heavy-handed decision, I thought I'd finally found some semblance of peace in my new apartment. That is, until my grandson walked in with an expression that screamed both concern and condescension. "Grandma," he said firmly, his voice tinged with frustration, "you shouldn't use the computer anymore. You don't know what you're doing. It's too risky." His words hit me like a cold splash of water. At that exact moment, I was midway through completing an urgent online banking transaction, a payment crucial for settling medical bills overdue by weeks. My fingers froze over the keyboard as panic bubbled up inside me. Before I could protest, he reached out and shut down the laptop, leaving the screen dark and my heart racing. The abrupt interruption left the transaction incomplete, and within minutes, an alert popped up on my phone. Payment failed. A wave of nausea washed over me. Not only was my account now potentially flagged for suspicious activity, but the hospital would soon send another late notice and possibly penalties. All because someone assumed they knew better than me. The irony wasn't lost on me. Just last week, I'd been teaching myself how to navigate video calls so I could stay connected with family who live far away. It wasn't easy. I'd spent hours watching tutorials, jotting notes, and practicing, but I'd managed it. Yet here I was, reduced to feeling like a helpless child under my own roof. My grandson's intentions were clear: protect me from potential scams or errors. But his actions stripped away something far more valuable: my independence, my dignity, and even my ability to manage my own life. I wanted to lash out, to scream, "How dare you treat me this way?" But years of wisdom whispered otherwise. Instead, I took a deep breath, steadying myself against the desk. When I finally spoke, my tone was calm, though laced with quiet resolve. "Thank you for worrying about me," I said softly, meeting his gaze. "But next time, please ask before taking such drastic steps." He blinked, clearly caught off guard by my composure. Over the next hour, I guided him through reopening the laptop and finishing the transaction, not because I needed his help, but because I wanted to show him just how capable I truly am. As we worked side by side, I couldn't help but notice a shift in his demeanor. Doubt gave way to admiration as he watched me type confidently, double-check figures, and finalize the payment without hesitation. By choosing patience over anger, I turned what could have been a devastating blow into a teachable moment for both of us. More importantly, I reminded myself that true strength isn't about proving others wrong. It's about rising above their assumptions with grace and resilience. And sometimes letting them underestimate you can lead to the sweetest victories of all. It was a quiet evening, and the remnants of daylight filtered through the curtains as we gathered around the dinner table. The tension in the air, however, was anything but peaceful. After the upheaval of losing my cherished home, the place where I had raised my children and built a lifetime of memories, I thought moving into this modest apartment would bring some semblance of calm. But life, it seemed, had other plans. My two children, Sarah and Michael, sat across from each other, their voices rising with every passing second. What began as a seemingly innocent discussion about caregiving responsibilities quickly spiraled into a heated argument that left me feeling like an invisible bystander in my own life. "You've always avoided responsibility," Sarah snapped, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "You think just because you live farther away, you don't have to help? Mom needs someone nearby, not excuses." Michael shot back without missing a beat, his face reddening with anger. "And you think dumping everything on me is fair? You're the one who insisted Mom move out of the house in the first place. Now you want to play the saint?" Their words collided like storm clouds, each accusation heavier than the last. As they continued shouting, I felt the weight of their frustration pressing down on me. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here were my own children, fighting over who would bear the burden of caring for me, as if I were nothing more than a task to be delegated or avoided. And then came the blow that knocked the wind out of me. "If neither of us can handle it," Michael said bitterly, slamming his fist on the table, "then maybe we should just put her in a nursing home. At least there she won't be anyone's problem." The room fell silent for a moment, save for the clinking of utensils against plates. My heart sank as I processed his words. A nursing home. To them, I had become such a burden that they were willing to cast me aside, trading family bonds for convenience. It was a cruel twist of fate, considering how hard I had worked to raise them, nurture them, and ensure they never felt unloved or neglected. Yet here we were, decades later, reduced to this painful spectacle. For a moment, I wanted to scream, to demand they see me as more than a responsibility, but wisdom born of years whispered otherwise. Instead of engaging in their chaos, I took a deep breath and spoke soft yet firmly. "I'm still here," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "I may be older, but I'm not a problem to solve. If you need to talk about this, let's do it calmly and respectfully." Their expression shifted. Shame flickered in Sarah's eyes while Michael looked momentarily stunned. By choosing to remain composed, I had disrupted the cycle of blame and anger, forcing them to confront the reality of their behavior. Over the next hour, I guided the conversation toward understanding rather than accusation. "Let's focus on solutions," I suggested, "not on who's right or wrong." Slowly, the atmosphere softened. They began listening to each other, realizing that their shared goal, my well-being, was more important than winning the argument. In that moment, I reminded myself of something profound. True strength isn't about asserting dominance or demanding recognition. It's about creating space for healing and connection. As much as their words had hurt, I knew their intentions weren't malicious. They were simply overwhelmed, afraid, and unsure of how to navigate the complexities of aging parents. By stepping into the role of the calm observer, I didn't just protect my dignity, I also offered them a lesson in patience, empathy, and unity. By the end of the evening, the tension had eased, replaced by tentative smiles and murmured apologies. Though the road ahead wouldn't always be smooth, I knew that by choosing grace over frustration, I had planted seeds of reconciliation. Family disputes are inevitable, but they don't have to define us. Sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to step back and when to gently guide others toward harmony. It was a frigid winter morning, the kind where every breath felt like frost clinging to your lungs. I sat huddled by my desk, staring at the glowing screen of my laptop, willing it to cooperate. The day had started innocently enough, just another routine check on my online banking account to ensure everything was in order. But then came the dreaded prompt, incorrect password. My heart sank as I tried again and again, each failed attempt tightening the knot of panic in my chest. By the third try, the system locked me out completely, flashing an ominous warning that my account would remain inaccessible for security reasons until further verification. The timing couldn't have been worse. Just yesterday, I received a stern reminder from the hospital about an overdue medical bill, a bill I needed to pay immediately to avoid late fees, or worse, suspension of services. And now here I was, stranded in a digital labyrinth with no way out. Normally I'd call Sarah, my ever-reliable daughter who lived nearby, but she was away on a work trip this week. Michael, my son, was even farther, buried under deadlines in another state. Both were unreachable, their phones silent despite my desperate voicemails. As the hours ticked by, frustration bubbled over into despair. I thought back to the countless times technology had left me feeling inadequate, like when my grandson insisted I didn't know how to use video calls, dismissing my capabilities so casually. This wasn't just about forgetting a password. It felt like yet another cruel reminder of how the world moved faster than I could keep up. My hands trembled as I scrolled through help articles, searching for answers I barely understood. Every pop-up ad and technical jargon seemed designed to mock my confusion. Wasn't I supposed to be the one in control? The same woman who once balanced household budgets down to the last penny without breaking a sweat. But then something shifted inside me. Perhaps it was the memory of all those years raising children, managing crises, and navigating life's storms with quiet resilience. Or maybe it was simply the realization that panicking wouldn't solve anything. Instead of letting fear consume me, I took a deep breath and decided to approach the problem differently. If the automated systems wouldn't listen, surely there was a human being somewhere willing to help. After what felt like an eternity on hold, I finally reached a customer service representative. Her voice was calm, almost soothing, as she guided me step by step through the verification process. By some miracle, or perhaps sheer determination, I regained access to my account just in time to make the payment. As the confirmation email landed in my inbox, relief washed over me like a warm tide. But the experience left me with more than gratitude. It gave me clarity. Technology may feel alien at times, but it doesn't define my worth. Each hurdle overcome is a testament to my adaptability, my refusal to give up. Even if it meant leaning on others occasionally, asking for help wasn't weakness, it was strength. That evening when Sarah called to check in, I shared the ordeal not with bitterness, but with humor. Looks like I survived the tech apocalypse, I joked. earning a laugh from her end. In that moment, I realized something profound. While technology might evolve rapidly, our ability to connect, to seek support and persevere remains timeless. It's not about mastering every gadget. It's about using them as tools to enrich our lives. And sometimes the greatest victories come not from conquering challenges alone, but from embracing the journey with grace. It was supposed to be a simple act of kindness, but it spiraled into something far more complicated and painful than I could have imagined. After years of navigating life's twists and turns, losing my cherished home, battling misunderstandings with family over caregiving, enduring their underestimation of my abilities, I thought I had built enough resilience to face anything. But this time the storm came not from strangers or distant acquaintances. It came roaring in from within my own family. The trouble began when I decided to use part of my savings to help an old friend, a dear companion from decades past, who had fallen on unimaginable hardship. We had shared so much, laughter-filled summers, late-night conversations about dreams yet unfulfilled, and even quiet moments of solace during life's darkest hours. When she reached out to me, her voice trembling with desperation, I didn't hesitate. Helping her wasn't just about money, it was about honoring the bond we'd nurtured for over 40 years. To me, that connection was priceless. But my children saw things differently. Sarah stormed into my apartment one evening, her face flushed with anger. "How could you do this?" she demanded, slamming a bank statement into the table. Michael followed close behind, his expression equally livid. "Do you realize how reckless this is? You're jeopardizing your future for what? Someone who isn't even family." Their words hit like daggers, sharp and relentless. They accused me of being naive, irresponsible, and selfish, not for spending frivolously, but for choosing to prioritize someone outside our immediate circle. The argument escalated quickly, each sentence laced with venom. "If you can't make sound decisions," Sarah spat, "then maybe we need to take control of your finances." Michael nodded in agreement, adding coldly, "We'll go to court if we have to." The threat hung in the air like a dark cloud, suffocating and inescapable. For weeks, the weight of their disapproval pressed down on me, heavier than any physical burden. Every phone call, every visit felt like another opportunity for them to question my judgment, to chip away at what little peace I had left. Sleep became elusive, replaced by restless nights filled with worry and self-doubt. Had I made a mistake? Was I truly as foolish as they claimed? Yet amidst the chaos, a quiet strength began to surface, one born not of defiance, but of clarity. I remember the countless choices I had made throughout my life, each one shaped by my values, my experiences, and my understanding of what truly mattered. My decision to help my friend hadn't been impulsive. It had been deliberate, rooted in a lifetime of learning that relationships are worth more than material wealth. And while my children might never fully grasp that, I knew I couldn't let their criticism define me. When they brought up the issue again during a tense family dinner, I chose my words carefully. "I understand your concerns," I said softly, meeting their eyes with unwavering calm. "But this was my choice, and it reflects what I believe in. If you feel the need to challenge me legally, I won't stop you. But know this, I have lived long enough to trust myself and my decisions." The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Over time, their fervor began to wane, replaced by reluctant acceptance. Though the scars remained, I emerged from the ordeal stronger, more resolute. This wasn't just about defending my actions. It was about affirming my right to live authentically, guided by my principles rather than others' expectations. In the end, I realized that true freedom lies not in avoiding conflict, but in standing firm, even when the world tries to sway you. It was a warm summer evening, the kind where the air feels heavy with both heat and unspoken tensions. Our family had gathered for what was supposed to be a joyful reunion, a rare occasion when everyone could sit around the table, share stories, and reconnect. But joy quickly turned into chaos when the conversation veered toward politics. What began as an innocent discussion about current events spiraled into a heated argument that left scars deeper than any of us anticipated. My grandson Daniel sat across from me, his youthful energy brimming with a conviction. He had always been outspoken, someone who wore his beliefs like armor, but tonight his words carried a sharp edge I hadn't seen before. "You don't understand anything," he snapped, his voice trembling with frustration. "Your views are outdated, Grandma. You're stuck in the past while the world moves forward." I felt the sting of his accusation pierce through me, but it wasn't just his tone that hurt. It was the dismissive way he looked at me, as if my decades of experience counted for nothing. Before I could respond, he added bitterly, "If you can't see how wrong you are, maybe we shouldn't even talk anymore." The room fell silent except for the sound of forks clinking against plates. His declaration hung in the air like thunderclouds, dark and suffocating. The days that followed were among the hardest I'd ever faced. Daniel refused to speak to me entirely, ignoring my calls and avoiding family gatherings. Worse still, the rift between us seemed to infect the entire family. Sarah sided with her son, defending his passion and accusing me of being too rigid. Michael, on the other hand, tried to mediate but often ended up alienating himself from both sides. Conversations became strained, smiles forced, and every interaction carried the weight of unresolved pain. For months, our once close-knit family felt fractured, torn apart by ideologies and generational divides. At first, I wanted to fight back, to prove him wrong, to show him that my perspective wasn't born out of ignorance, but from years of witnessing history unfold. But then I remembered something profound. Wisdom isn't about winning arguments. It's about preserving relationships. So instead of engaging in another battle, I chose silence, not because I agreed with him, but because I understood that love transcends disagreements. One afternoon, weeks after the fallout, I decided to write Daniel a letter. In it, I didn't defend my views or criticize his. Instead, I shared memories of my own struggles growing up during times of societal upheaval, the civil rights movement, wars, and economic crises, and how those experiences shaped my worldview. I ended the letter with these words: "We may not always agree, but your voice matters to me. I hope mine still matters to you too." To my relief, Daniel responded days later. His reply was brief but sincere. "Thanks for writing, Grandma. Maybe we can find a way to understand each other better." Though reconciliation didn't happen overnight, that small exchange marked the beginning of healing. Over time, we learned to navigate our differences without letting them define us. We discovered that while we couldn't change each other's minds, we could choose to respect one another. Looking back, I realized that this ordeal taught me something invaluable. Sometimes stepping away from conflict isn't weakness, it's strength. By choosing peace over pride, I protected not only my dignity, but also the bonds that held our family together. And though the journey was painful, it reminded me that true victory lies not in being right, but in fostering understanding, even amidst the most challenging divides. It was a crisp autumn afternoon, the kind where golden leaves danced in the wind and sunlight filtered through the trees. I sat across from an old acquaintance, Robert, at a cozy cafe, a man I had known for decades. We had shared laughter, stories, and even weathered some storms together over the years. His warm smile and familiar tone lulled me into a false sense of security as he leaned forward, his eyes alight with excitement. "This is the opportunity of a lifetime," he said, his voice brimming with conviction. "I wouldn't bring it to just anyone, but you've always been like family to me." The words struck a chord deep within me. Family, trust, connection, all things I held sacred after years of nurturing relationships. The proposal sounded promising. A real estate development project that would yield astronomical returns in just months. He spoke passionately about how this venture would not only secure my financial future, but also allow me to leave a lasting legacy for my children. It felt almost poetic, given how much I valued stability and security after everything I'd endured: the loss of my cherished home, countless family disputes, and the gnawing fear of being underestimated or dismissed by those around me. This investment seemed like a way to reclaim control, to prove to myself and others that I could still make bold, meaningful decisions. But what began as a gesture of goodwill soon unraveled into something far darker. Weeks turned into months, and the promised updates never came. My calls went unanswered. My texts were ignored. Panic set in when I discovered that Robert had vanished, along with every penny I had invested. Not only was my savings gone, but the mortgage on my current home now loomed precariously over me. The weight of potential bankruptcy crushed my spirit, leaving me sleepless and haunted by visions of losing everything all over again. In the days that followed, shame mingled with anger. How could someone I trusted so deeply betray me? Memories flooded back of all the times I had extended kindness, not just to Robert, but to others who had taken advantage of my generosity. There was the distant cousin who borrowed money and never repaid it, the neighbor who guilted me into covering their expenses during a crisis, and now this. Each instance felt like another layer of disillusionment peeling away, exposing the raw vulnerability beneath. Yet amidst the chaos, a quiet resolve began to surface. I remembered the lessons I'd learned throughout life about discernment, resilience, and protecting my peace. When Sarah and Michael heard about the situation, they were furious, ready to confront Robert themselves. But I stopped them. "This isn't about revenge," I said firmly. "It's about learning and moving forward." Instead of succumbing to despair, I sought legal advice, filed reports, and took steps to safeguard whatever remained of my assets. Though the road ahead was uncertain, I chose to focus on rebuilding rather than dwelling on what was lost. Over time, I realized something profound. Kindness doesn't mean naivety, and generosity shouldn't come at the cost of self-preservation. By allowing myself to feel the pain of betrayal without letting it define me, I emerged stronger, wiser, and more cautious. I began setting boundaries, gentle yet firm, and directing my compassion toward those who truly deserved it. In doing so, I reclaimed not only my financial stability, but also my dignity and inner strength. Looking back, I see this ordeal as both a cautionary tale and a testament to the power of resilience. True generosity stems from confidence, not obligation. And while it hurts to be deceived, The wisdom gained from such experiences becomes a shield, a reminder that even in our darkest moments, we have the strength to rise above and protect what matters most.